Hey guys, this is the XRP Cowboy. Hey, this is Billy. Mr. Potato Head. One of my Twitter friends. What I look at is like the way Ripple could, clearly the banks don't have the money. If everybody cashed, out on the banks, they would all fold instantly. Because they don't have that money, because the money's not real. They lend out 90% of what you give them, and then there's fractional lending and all these new ways they create ways of using your money. But 100%, there is no money to give individuals if they all did a run on the bank. And how I think XRP could help them, specifically, is I believe it's like $27 trillion they have locked up in Nostro accounts. Nostro, mine in your account. And that's just where they fund banks, other banks besides their own. And they put a hold on the money. They hold the money so we can get it when we're overseas, cross borders. Like the Bearable Bull talks about how he's basing a dollar amount for the price of XRP based on the value of these Nostro accounts. But that's not completely accurate from my perspective, because they're not replacing these accounts with XRP. They're getting rid of them completely because on-demand liquidity, ODL. So ultimately, if you need money overseas, they can just send it instantly. And they'll always have liquidity because it'll be the money you're paying, moving, and they'll make their money from their fees. And they're going to manipulate that somehow, but that's what banks do. But it is one big Ponzi scheme. So that $27 trillion they could contract, bring it back in, and there's some areas they won't even fund because they're afraid of maybe even a government run on the bank. So they'll be able to provide liquidity anywhere in the world with ODL. So that's how XRP and Ripple could help the banks. And just keep in mind, all I do is read and watch videos on this shit. So I try to vet as much as I can, but some things you don't need it. Like, banks are just fucking vampires, okay? So ultimately, now I could say this, if we want to talk about the national debt, how could that be resolved? And this is very simple. And I know you've heard of the Bretton Woods. If not, it was a meeting where everybody got together, all the big countries, and to my understanding, I'm dumbing it down. I'm not that smart, but and they just said, okay, they asked each other what they feel the value of gold should be, because it was, at the time, it was, the dollar was backed by gold and everything, or their currency was. And they all had different prices, and ultimately, if one guy said, right now it's 2,000 an ounce or something, I don't know what it is right now, but I know I own some, but if let's say one of these guys in today's world, one of these, world leaders, said, hey, I think it should be worth 7,000 an ounce if we had another Bretton Woods. And then let's just say somebody overseas said, well, I think it should be worth 12,000 an ounce, because that's what I need to get myself out of trouble with my debt. Because all countries have a national debt, and my enemy's enemy is my ally. So all these countries are in debt. So they want this, to work out. So they will unite, for the greater good of their people or themselves, whatever you want to call it. But the bottom line is, that country say, I think it's worth 12. Well, I'll buy yours for 8,000, but we're going to make it 12,000 an ounce. And this can happen in a short amount of time, a couple hour meeting. And so how does that attach to, I think it was Judy Sheldon or something, said we're going back to the future in a crypto kind of way. And all I heard was backed, She may have said back, but implied backed to to the future in a cryptocurrency kind of way. So I believe that's where the digital dollar comes in. You may even say other digital dollars for different, fiat for different countries. So ultimately, it can happen. Now, I don't believe the digital dollar can be backed by the dollar because the dollar is not backed by anything. But I think this could be our way of getting back to a backed dollar with gold. So just say, let's say we have the digital dollar backed by gold. And this is just a theory. I don't take too much of this to heart, but don't quote me. But the whole thing is if all the countries decided what they need to get rid of this national debt and they raise the price of gold, which is why people like me are speculating into gold, to a certain dollar amount, then their digital dollar would be worth that amount. And now, all of a sudden, like magic overnight, the national debt's gone. It could be that simple, even though nothing is. But where XRP, once again, it has its role, I don't think XRP is going to be backed by gold. I think XRP is just backed by trust, like the current US dollar, and the trust of the ledger, and the validators, and actually the trust that the cash is there. Every dollar of XRP, there's a dollar that was invested into it, right? But you do have, there is, I could get into a little conspiracy stuff with that in itself about how it's backed and if the liquidity is actually there. But what we do know is if, XRP, if they Ripple sold half the if they could release all their XRP, they could take the price and sell it at one time. They could take the price to nothing. And it's almost like an algorithmic thing when as the price is going up, the more demand, the more it goes up, and the less demand, and the more sell pressure, it's going to go down. But whatever you want. But you could actually have a reasonably stable US dollar attached to the gold where we don't have any volatility. Or we should say no more than inflationary volatility. In fact, it could move with inflation. It could just be part of the digital structure, the construct. Just some ideas. But this is, and now why would they do that? What would the narrative be? Well, we know it's all a Ponzi scheme. The printing of money, the Federal Reserve, the banks, central banks, they're all brothers, right? And they've made a mess of things, and they're at a point to where, it's coming to a head. Every debt is due and it will get paid at some point. So they're faced with, like many of these currencies have gone to zero. The only reason the US dollar's up right now is because it's investment. It's the only thing people feel safe investing in. So you've got, if you're investing in another fiat or currency, you're at a risk it could go to zero for the same reason the US dollar should be worth like nothing right now. But they're like, the US is going to survive. Every the number one world economy, which that's people arguably. So now people are going where it's safe, and that's the US dollar, and that's why it keeps going up. So, but that debt will have to be paid too. So the narrative is probably going to look like, it's not going to be, hey, we wanted to build the number one military, and have the best tech in the world. So we printed money for our militaries, our weapons, to keep our homeland safe. It's not going to be that. And all the other ridiculous reasons they've printed money, like for, I would say, quantitative easing, they printed money, bought stocks, and then they sold their stocks with imaginary money. And that's just a form of cashing out. And then they'll do tightening, and then they'll bring it all down, and they'll buy it again, with printed money. It's just ridiculous and unbelievable. And the more you learn and the more you get involved in this Ponzi scheme of the U.S. currency and the Federal Reserve and central banks, all that shit, the more it sounds like just a crazy fucking fairy tale land. But it's government, they control. And the bankers, the whales that won't want to see us swim, they won't let us swim. they control government, and that's who's doing this stuff. It's the give it a name, the dark, the night. They're in control. And that's why when we have world leaders like presidents, like maybe our last one, depending on your political views, they didn't like somebody that couldn't be controlled, like Trump. And so what'd they do? What'd they do to him? I'm actually more impressed at how many of these lawsuits he's dodged, because I do believe there's always, behind great wealth is a great crime. And it's just amazing to me that he's been able to cover his ass as long as he has, because I'm sure there's something illegal there, and I'm not against him in any way. I'm just saying, when you're independent, I know he ran Republican, but when you're kind of against the money, the night, the banks, the IRS, the FBI, everybody, they're going to come get you, They're going to come and get you. I'm surprised that's all they've tried to do to him. But point is they're not going to blame, all these years and years of printing money since we went off the gold standard, decades and decades. What they're going to do is say they needed to help us because we had to give money to help because of this beer flu that came out. I'm not saying it's not real. I question the motives behind it. Was it put upon us, or were we waiting for it? That's where my question is, and I don't know if it's as severe as it's the media pushed it to be. I know people have lost people, but I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anyone, but I'd argue people lose people to other things too, but I guess the arguments, it was a significant amount of people, but a lot of that was pre-existing health issues too, meaning if you got ill from the flu and you were diabetic, it's a lot of times it's diabetic death, but in the beer flu's case, it was a beer flu death. So, but that's just crazy speculation, right? Not speculation, conspiracy shit. But my bottom line is they're going to blame that on why they had to change the financial system. They did it to help us, so people could have their mortgages suspended, so we could get unemployment, independent contractors who wouldn't have qualified, stimulus for business, maybe help people pay off college debt. All these things, they're going to say, this is why we have to do it. It was because of China. They're going to say, yeah, whatever. Bottom line, the beer flu, it was because of it. So I think, and where Ripple comes in with the digital dollars, banks don't trust each other. Countries definitely don't trust each other, so you need a bridge. XRP to the moon. My dream is my roadies. Love.